Hey, everybody, thanks for coming back. Thank you all for doing what you do and listening and watching and doing whatever you do. I just appreciate you. But let me just get into the show. All right, let me start off by saying back in the day, Reggie and I, we used to have this routine and we had these episodes and we refer to these episodes as Ask a Woman episodes. And in the course of those episodes, we have various women on the show to talk about various things because, as you all know, despite Reggie being married and myself being single forever and dating forever, we know absolutely nothing about women. So we bring women on the show and talk about women's stuff. And as such, they would enlighten us. But since Reggie came down with whatever type of social anxiety he has or whatever and refuses to speak to anybody anymore, I hadn't had those Ask a Woman episodes since. And that is until now. Today we have Abby Rosenblum on the show today, and she is to serve as our resident woman. So for the purposes of this episode, she represents every single woman in the world. So no pressure. So
oh, wow, no pressure.
Right. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Abby before I allow her to speak and go through that whole process. First and foremost, Abby is a professional, successful matchmaker. Successful being the first key word that everybody should pay attention to, and professional being the second. And this is not to be confused with you all who think that because you introduced two single friends back 5 years ago and they dated for 2 weeks and then tried to kill each other, that makes you a matchmaker. No, you're not. You're just somebody who knew two single people and just assumed that because they were single, they had enough in common that they should be together, which is what people do, which is always wrong. And don't even get me started on that. Abby is a real matchmaker. You can go to her site, thesocialmm.club, and you'll see what she offers, the process. She puts her candidates through interviews, background checks, personality tests, and I am betting that all of you pseudo matchmakers don't do anything like that when you're matching up your single cousin with somebody that you met and saw at the rental office. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent because that actually happened to me. So with all of that said, hi, Abby, and welcome. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me, Michael. I have been laughing and trying not to laugh out loud during all the things you've been mentioning in that intro. And I can't wait to chat with you today and hopefully bestow a little bit of wisdom from the world of women. I'm kind of scared that I have to represent all women.
Hey, it's the price you pay.
I guess, right?
Yeah. And before I get into the questions, and I have to admit, a lot of these questions will reflect my ignorance when it comes to the matchmaking process and specifically what you do. But that's why I'm having you on, so you can clear up that. And feel free at any time to call me stupid. I'm fine with that. My ego can take it. But
Okay.
also, I want to take this opportunity to shine a light on Abby's podcast. She has a podcast. The title of it is called Ghosted. And when you're looking at it on your Apple or Google, I use Google. I'm the only one though. But
Wow,
I
you
should,
do.
I,
Okay.
I know, right? I'm alone, but that's all right. I stand tall in my being alone. But yeah, if you're searching for it, it's the white ghost with the pink background. And I strongly recommend it. It's not a lot of time out of your day. And I tell you what, I listen to it, obviously.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be weird that you would be on the show. But I listened to it, and two of the episodes that really stood out to me and the demographic of this particular show is one, and forgive me for butchering the names. One is you had an episode with a woman, and I think the title of it was Dating After 40 or something like that.
Yes.
And yeah, and the woman that you interviewed, she was really cool, but she talked about her online dating experiences and how, unlike a lot of people that do online dating, she actually committed to the process. And as a result, she found her husband. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that was one. And the other one that resonated with me and the demographic of this show is you had one about polyamory. And I don't remember the specific title of that, but the woman that you interviewed, she was fascinating to me because it wasn't just like, okay, sell us on polyamory, because some people think that's dirty and taboo. But she just talked about her journey in dating and how she wound up in that place. I just found that fascinating. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, she blew my mind. She has like 7 kids and is also polyamorous. I honestly don't know how that woman also has a successful career. She's crazy.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a
So,
lot of people to juggle.
exactly. So I strongly encourage everybody listening to this to listen to her podcast. As I always tell people, tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends to listen to my podcast. And because I'm a narcissist like that, and I don't want anybody to be bigger than me, I'll tell you all to tell 40 friends to tell 40 friends to listen to Abby's podcast, Ghosted. So, okay.
I appreciate that. Hey, if I get 40 new listeners, that's awesome.
Hey, we'll take it how it comes. Okay, are
Exactly.
you ready for these questions?
I hope so. Let's just get to it.
I know, right? Again, no pressure. Okay, talking about how I view matchmaking in my head, let me ask you if you are familiar with any one of these. When I think of matchmaking, I think of a combination of there was a show back in the day on Bravo called The Millionaire Matchmaker, and it featured someone named Patty Stanger.
Yep.
And there's the movie Hitch with Will Smith.
Hmm.
You saw that one? Okay.
Yes.
And the third is a television show that's currently running on Lifetime called Married at First Sight.
Okay, I know all these. This is
Okay.
good.
Okay. So when I think about matchmaking and what you do being a combination of those three things, tell me, am I like even in the ballpark, close, or not even within a mile?
You are definitely close. So you're not
Okay.
very far off with those three things.
Cool. Cool.
What's interesting is actually in my matchmaker world, there are matchmakers, of course, all over the world and the country, and even in where I'm in Denver, there's multiple matchmakers here too. We all collaborate. And I've actually collaborated with Patty Stanger, which is pretty cool,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
some of her clients. So we all work together to, bring more love into the world. So definitely not too far off. I will say I'm maybe not as direct as Patty. She definitely is very direct and
Yeah.
honest about, everything she says on that show. And I actually do a workshop where I show all the things that Will Smith got wrong as Hitch in that movie.
Okay.
Um, which is kind of a fun one. I work with a lot of dating coaches too, and we, help make people help prepare them for dating. And yeah, we go through that movie and actually pick out all the things that are wrong. But the concept, yes, a little bit matchmaking, and then Married at First Sight. I would never ask someone to marry someone without meeting them first. But what they do, like all the interview and background stuff they do, that is a lot of what I do with my people, of learning about them, their lifestyle, their goals, their hopes, their dreams, their past, their trauma, all of that. So I do think that show is definitely entertaining, and does show a little bit of truth about how matchmaking does work too.
Okay, cool. And going back from the beginning, how did you even get involved in this as a profession? I know that you come from the
Yeah.
media world, but not a media matchmaking world. So how did you get started in that?
Totally. So honestly, it was born out of my own dating struggles. So I'm actually getting married in a couple weeks now. So my
All
dating
right
struggles
then.
worked out, and this will probably be dated when this episode comes out. But maybe I'll be married by then.
Hey.
So I was a serial dater on every dating app, just wanting to meet a ton of people, and maybe some of it was totally not for the right reasons, but went on probably over 100 dates in, a 6-month period, and just didn't meet a whole lot of awesome people. I met one awesome person who is now my fiance.
Oh, okay.
But as I was going through that, I just wondered, why is this the only way we can date? As a millennial, that's really the only way I've ever thought of dating, beyond college and meeting someone at a party. The only other way was to open up Tinder or Bumble or Hinge and find someone who looked cute and had a good bio. So, I thought, well, with my Jewish heritage, matchmaking has always been something that's been part of our community. But it's something that it feels like it's for older people, or maybe isn't as accessible. People just don't even know where to look for it. So I said, okay, I'm going to start doing matchmaking. I love bringing people together. I love seeing how they fit together like a puzzle. So the social modern matchmaking was born about 3 years ago. I put up a website, signed up all my single friends, and now it has grown into my full-time job, which is pretty fun. I'm not going to lie.
Nicely done. And so when someone's going through the process, I read on your website that you interview them. Is it a sit down interview, or is it one of those like 20-hour eHarmony type things, or a combination of both?
What is the 20-hour eHarmony thing?
Have you ever signed up for eHarmony before?
I have helped someone and it is like, it's extensive.
Yeah, if you've done it, you understand. And the thing that's tripped out about it is that it shows that a lot of people, when they're answering these questions, they don't actually ask them from the perspective of who they are right now. It's more of like who they think they are or who they want
Ooh,
to be. Yeah, so you meet someone and you be matched up with someone, and in their list of questions, they say, I hate drama, I hate arguing. And then a week later, it's like they're fighting with you over stuff. And it's like, whoa, it's not even that serious. So
mhm.
it's things like that. So that's the reason I ask. And that's the reason I have
Yeah.
these issues with the 20-hour eHarmony questionnaire, because they take 20 hours.
Yeah, and I sort of appreciate that they do have that barrier to entry, but in a way, it's hard to really get a sense of who a person is online in general. So, that's why I do an interview to figure out, we talk about past, we talk about the present, we talk about the future, we talk about that person's ideal partner. I bring them down to earth if need be, if their ideal partner is someone who is completely out of any kind of reality that they would be dating. Um, I'll get 75-year-old men that are like, yeah, I'm just going to date women in their 20s. Like, okay, there's an app for that, maybe. So, that's a lot of what I talk to people about. And it's really getting to know their energy, their vibe. Of course, I need to check boxes of politics and religion and smoking cigarettes and drinking and all those things. But it's really getting to know the person and just seeing, how are they going to vibe with this other human I connect them with.
Yeah. Or being in Colorado smoking things besides cigarettes. But
Yeah, that pretty common across the board here.
yeah, true. Okay, so my next question is, how far do you go with clients? And what I mean by that is, obviously, you're not like, you don't have them wear an earpiece at their date and you're like telling them in their ear what to say to the person across from them. But are you preparing them in advance? It's like, because obviously you're going to come across some different personalities. So are you, I guess it's coaching. Do you kind of coach them up and say, hey, I'm going to match you with this person. Don't be weird and don't wear the fanny pack or something like that. Like, how far do you go with that?
Well, so I am fortunate. The majority of people who come to me are pretty set in like having good social skills, dressing well, all that good stuff. They just need a few tweaks here and there to feel even more confident. So I do have, sometimes I use a month to prep with someone before I even start setting them up on dates.
Oh, wow.
So I actually will take them to my stylist that I work with. We'll get them a few new outfits. Some people, I even get them a custom tailored item if they need it.
Okay.
Because we got to have, especially these guys looking good. The ladies, I don't have to worry as much about.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, I'll get everybody a haircut just so they feel nice. Ladies will show them a little makeup lesson just to refresh, what they've been doing forever. I even work with an astrologist to help people learn how to manifest love.
Oh, wow.
And I do some one-on-one coaching sessions, and then also even have a therapist I bring in if we need to go even deeper. So, if people
Sheesh.
sign on, yeah, to work one-on-one with me, we go all in. Because I tell people I want to give you the tools to connect well with people and then just introduce you to other awesome people. And then the rest is up to you.
Okay. So with that said, that makes sense to me. But is there a small sense of kind of like, I don't want to say misrepresentation, but for lack of a better word, kind of a misrepresentation. If you're giving them makeup tips and things like that, is that something that they'll stick with? Or if you're giving them fashion tips, is that the new direction that they'll stick with? Or is it just like, I'm going to make you the most presentable, and then it's up to you after that to maintain this?
Yeah, I definitely am here as a resource for people who are like, oh, actually, I love that, sports coat that I got from the stylist. I want to get more for work. That would be something where I would definitely continue working with someone. And my goal is that these are easy things to implement into their lives. So, I'm not doing any extreme makeovers
Okay.
or anything like that, because that would make me feel not genuine. When someone's going on a date, like I just kind of judged this person up and now they're not their authentic self. someone who is more casual and, just wants to go on walking dates and wear sneakers and jeans, that is totally fine. I am not going to put that person in a sports coat and send them to a fancy 5-star restaurant. So I still try to keep it authentic to that person. And especially since I am focused in Denver, we're a pretty casual city and everyone loves their dogs. So most dates involve just a walk around the park these days.
Okay. It's nice and safe, I guess, depending upon the park. But yeah.
Right. Got to be in like a decent neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. Okay. So this next question, and I asked this from this perspective, thinking of how I might conduct myself if I were a professional matchmaker.
Right.
You're engaged now. So, and that's great, but you weren't always engaged. So let's say hypothetically, was there ever a time when some guy came across your doorstep and said, "Hey, I want to be matched," and you looked at him and was like, "Oh, whoa, shoot. How about we bypass this process and maybe you and I, come on, be honest. It's just you and I. I won't tell."
Yes, of course that's happened. Come on. And I think if fortunately the whole time I've been doing this business, I have been taken. But of course, there's been men that have come across. I'm like, "Ooh, you are 100% my type." And then I think that's awesome because it's almost more fun working with them because I'm like, "Oh, okay. Now I really know who you're going to be attracted to also and who's going to work because it might be someone a little like me." So yes, I think it would be really difficult to be single as a matchmaker because I probably would want to date a lot of my clients because they're so awesome.
Uh-huh.
And I know there are a lot of single matchmakers out there, and they kind of across the board, at least all the ones I've chatted with, don't date their clients just because that complicates things a bit.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, right. And I'm actually matchmaking a couple matchmakers because they don't want to, search in their own pool for people.
That's interesting. Okay, so when you're matchmaking matchmakers, is it like, I can only imagine it's kind of like trying to be the therapist to the therapist. Is it just like
Right.
them kind of like nitpicking what you do and critiquing the steps that you take? Or is it just like, I'm just so sick of doing this. It's like, hey, just take it all and you just do it. I won't question anything.
It's definitely a lot of trust and a lot of boundaries because there are matchmakers who would nitpick. And I don't think we would work well together. So, I tell them, hey, if you can trust me to do this, we can work together. I would tell that to anybody. Obviously it takes a little bit sometimes to build that trust. It'd be a little weird if they met me for an hour and then just decided, I fully trust this person.
Mm,
Might be a bit of a red flag,
mm,
especially on a date.
mm.
So yeah, with matchmakers, it's definitely setting a lot of boundaries too, because they know the ins and outs of my business and everything that's going on, which is good because they know what's coming, but can also be sometimes a pain in the ass.
That's a fair point. And
Yeah.
so conversely, and I respect and appreciate your honesty on the first part, but on the other side, has there been someone again sitting across the table that walked through your doorstep and was like looking at you because you're an attractive woman, saying, "Hey,
Yep.
how about you and I bypass this process?" How often are you hit on, Abby?
I mean, I hate to say this, but too much, Michael, too much. I feel like, I get a ton of people, messaging me on Facebook asking what's my situation? Oh, you're a matchmaker. Well, can I just date you? Or people that, meet me and they'll just say, hey, you are my type. And I'm like, well, that's easy then, I guess, for me to find you women.
Oh,
I'll just
nicely
look for,
done. That's smooth.
right. I'm like, I'll just set you up with my sister. She's single.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely does happen. I think it's just kind of par for the course. And fortunately, I have a very understanding fiance, and he gets that this is just kind of part of the job.
Yeah, and that was going to lead to the next question that popped in my head, because you
Yeah.
really do have to be with someone who's really secure in
Oh yeah.
himself and your relationship, considering that, yeah, this is what you do for a living. So,
Right. I mean, he just knows that I am going to hit on everyone, men, women, all the time, online, in person. Whenever I see someone who looks just like confident and cool and attractive in Starbucks, I'm going to start talking to them. So he just knows that. And He's fortunately a secure attachment style, if you know anything about attachment theory, and
Mhm.
it is definitely a good thing to have in our relationship.
Okay, and that leads me to one of my other questions down the line, but I'll get to it now. You talk about hitting up people at the Starbucks or wherever.
Yeah.
My question was, how do you fill up your database full of candidates? I guess is just seeing people at your Starbucks or at your Target and walking up to them.
Yeah, it's partially that. It's definitely a lot of referrals, people who know me and they're in the database. They're like, oh, I'll send Abby a friend. I also host a lot of singles events. So a lot of people will join my database through that. And I think I just hit 766 people
Oh
in the
wow!
database.
Oh
So
wow!
yeah, so it is growing. But of course, with matchmaking, I want people to be out of the database. So I like having a lot of people, but I'm happy when they get out of the database and get into a relationship and don't need me.
Right. So people that come to you, they know that it's not just you and two of your friends. Well, not you, but two of your friends looking to be matched up. They know that there's a serious pool of candidates, so they can
Right.
trust you. It's
And in the beginning, it was just two of my girlfriends in there.
Hey, we all have to start somewhere. So
Right. Exactly.
it's funny because when you were mentioning the 700 plus that you have in the database, my first thought was kind of like a grocery store where you kind of like take the produce that's going bad and you put them up front. And not that you would ever do this or anyone would ever do this, but do you look at person 764 who has been in the database for like 5 years and they've never had a successful match? Do you kind of feel a little bad and feel like you need to work a little extra harder to get them out of the database?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person. But yes, I definitely don't love, obviously, when people are in the database forever. But some people also change their mind, like, hey, I do want to be single now. So, just like don't set me up. Which, I honestly commend that. People who like being single and want to stay that way, that's honestly a very good place to be. And sometimes that can be when you actually find your person, when you stop feeling like you're coming from this place of desperation, like I need someone or I really want to find someone. It can sometimes be a really good mindset to be in. But yeah, I definitely check in with my database people who've been in there for a while, to see what I can do to help them. Maybe they're not connecting in the right way with people. Maybe they need, maybe I'll send them a good book to give them perspective. Maybe they'll work with the dating coach, come to an event, workshop, something like that too.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, with all of that said, 700 people plus that you have to manage in some form or another. I'm sure you've come across somebody who's been on a date or dates or whatever, and you've gotten a report back that they were like nuts or something like that. And you had to have like a serious talk with them. I know you deal with great people, but with that number, people are nuts. So I'm sure you've had to deal with at least one bad apple. Tell me about that experience or experiences. Share.
Yeah, there definitely have been experiences. Because of course I do an hour and a half interview with people, or a member of my team does, and sometimes people don't show they're crazy until they're drunk and on a date or out in a group of people. And I'm like, oh, thank you for showing me your crazy side. I hosted an event and I had a guy who was just going around talking politics with everybody, which is never a good topic for a date or
especially,
any group. I mean,
especially
come
not in
on.
these times.
Yeah. I mean, I specifically tell people before dates, like, don't talk about politics, exes, other dates, and how much you're paying your matchmaker. Those are the topics to stay away from. So he was going around talking politics to everybody, and anyone who didn't agree with him, he was calling. I feel like I don't know if I should say this on the podcast, but he
Oh,
was
please.
okay, he was calling them a libtard and
Okay.
then walking away. So just going around to everyone in the room, after he was also telling people that he is a pickup artist, which is,
Uh-oh.
kind of a frowned upon thing, obviously, in the dating community. So yeah, fortunately, I have a list of rules that everyone agrees to when they join to work with me, and being respectful is one of them. And so that one was obviously broken, and I can say goodbye.
Okay. I wouldn't think that the pickup artist would need a matchmaker, but I guess what do I know? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he was a very good pickup artist, so I think that was part.
No, if he's walking around places calling people that term, yeah, I guess yeah, his skills might be a little bit less than stellar. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
sometimes you get those kind of people, or the people who get drunk and do things that they then regret on dates. I never recommend getting drunk on a first date. Usually not a good look, but it happens.
Yeah, but I can see it though, because I talk to women all the time that talk about meeting guys that really start drinking before the date even starts and they show up to the date drunk, or they start getting drunk once the date starts. And I can
Mhm.
understand that a lot of that might be just nervousness,
Oh yeah.
but still, nervous or not, whatever the reason is, it's not a good thing to do, especially if you're trying to impress someone. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're that nervous, I feel like there are probably some other ways you can try to calm yourself down rather than drinking. Hopefully, but maybe that's the only way for some people. I was going to ask you, what about when you're on a date? What are some of the rules that you follow? Tell me more.
Um, well, the first thing is just to act like you have some sense. That's the one that really works for me.
Yep.
And to be prepared to say more than one or two things. I've actually gone out on dates where I actually had scripts written out, where it's just like, because,
Really?
yeah, because I don't necessarily know, especially if it's somebody that I just met. A lot of women that I will meet, they might describe themselves as more introverted. So it means that I'll have to pull things out of them, and if they're not giving me much back, one, that's a bad sign that the date is going bad. But also because I won't just get up and walk out on a date, I still feel like I need to make the most of this. And so you see, from this, I'm a talker. So it's just staying engaged. I don't, the only time that I drink on a date is if she's drinking. So if she's not drinking, I don't drink. If she drinks one, I'll drink one. If she drinks two, I'll drink two. So like that. And I am pretty good with my liquor. So no one can outdrink me in that regard. So we don't have to worry about anything like that. And then there are just things like the basic things that everybody should have grown up with, just manners and just respect, and things like opening a door, those things that you would think that people would take for granted, but not as many people know to do in this day and age. So yeah, so it's nothing special. It's just basically for me, just common sense.
Yeah. But it's important. And a lot of people, like you said, don't necessarily know it. But yeah, I'm curious too. I know you said opening doors. I love having this conversation of chivalry. Is it
Yeah.
dead or not? I know most of the women I chat with love that. Someone opening a door, even opening a car door. Would you ever do that?
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm a little bit older than you. I remember back in the days where we didn't have automatic locks and you actually had to go over and unlock the door for the person and let them in.
Yeah.
And that was the way to do it. You couldn't get in first and then reach over and unlock their door. And so that's one thing. But the one thing that's strange, Abby, is that from my experience in dating, there seems to be this battle amongst men and women. You talk about chivalry and things like that, where guys feel like they're so concerned about being taken advantage of that those things that I just take for granted, they feel like, okay, if I'm doing this, what am I getting for this? And
Mhm.
even though they don't say that outwardly, it is what a lot of people think. There are a lot of guys that complain about women today than they did when I was younger, and there are a lot of women that complain about guys more so than they did when I was younger. So it's everybody trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to be taken advantage of, I don't want to be used, and as such, I will do the least until they meet me halfway. So it's like a weird game of dating chicken.
Yeah, it bothers me so, so much. I have this conversation a lot with people that I think part of why this has shifted is dating apps,
Mhm.
because there's this thought that, well, if it doesn't work out with you, there's 500 other people I could go date tomorrow and swipe through all of them. So
Yeah.
people have become so hyper picky and just can focus on the tiniest little things that will make a deal breaker out of like someone, holding their fork weird.
Yeah. It's the funniest thing because I talked about this on the episode a long time ago. Me and Reggie were having this conversation, and it was funny because I had gotten to a point where I had been on dating apps for so long that I could tell when someone was new.
Mhm.
Because when a woman was new, she would dismiss people for like the slightest things, and she would be not necessarily willing to engage you in conversation. It would be like, okay, impress me. And so I would, based on the responses that I would get, I would just come out and ask, and I'd just be like, you're new to this, right? And he'd be like, yeah, how'd you know? Like, yeah, I've seen it before. So I don't know what
The
that says about
expert.
me. Yeah, I don't know what that says about me. The fact that shoot, I've grown to be an expert, that I've been on these things so many times and so long. But yeah, you kind of pick up the patterns. But yeah, I agree with you. Online dating is an experience. Yeah,
It is. It's tough that, these apps have made dating into a game. You get
yeah,
fireworks when you get a match, you're literally swiping and it feels like you're actually playing a game. So, so many people go on there as a joke or, just not to really do anything. And then the people who are on there and want something serious, it's, totally, a disadvantage for them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If we have some time, we'll come back to that. um,
Okay,
but
perfect.
yeah, but let me ask you another question. Going back to your rules that you give to people, one of them being not to discuss what they're paying you. So I won't ask you what you charge. People can contact you if they want to know that, especially if you're in the
Sure.
Colorado area. But I am interested in knowing, like, just give me a general ballpark thing. Is it like, okay, you pay this amount for one match, you pay this amount for 5 individual people? How does that work? Is it like based on success? And then the one is I'm really curious about, has anyone ever like paid for like the 10-person package and then come back and said, oh, I dated all 10 of these women, or I dated all 10 of these men and I didn't get any results. It's your fault, Abby.
Fortunately, I have not had that happen. Most of the people, so I work on in a time frame. So I work with someone for a 6-month minimum.
Mhm.
And, like we talked about, we might do the stylist, we might do the astrologist, we might do all those things. And then, of course, you go on dates in that time. It's unlimited dates in that time, as many, honestly, as feels good to that person. So for some people, maybe we do all their dates on one day. They're like, I just want back to back to back to back. Those people blow my mind. That sounds super overwhelming. Usually it's like a date every other week, honestly, because
Okay.
most dates go on to second dates. And then it gets to be a lot if you're doing a date every week. Because most of these people who come to me are super busy, which is why they're like, hey, I need someone to help me with this dating stuff because I'm just too busy with life to do it on my own.
Okay.
So yeah, we work together for that 6-month period. And then the people in my database, they're on a yearly basis. So each year they decide if they want to stay in the database and renew. And that is $250 a year. And
Okay.
then the 6-month kind of depends on what someone is looking for, how many dates, if they want all those extra services. Um, so yeah, please feel free to reach out if you're curious about all that stuff. And even if you're not in Colorado, I have a network of matchmakers all over the place and can connect people with anyone really.
250, that's not bad at all, but that's me saying that. I'm sure some
Yeah.
people might see it differently, but if you're looking for love and something long term, I would think that's a small investment, but hey, that's
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
It
So,
definitely is. And I just want it to be a small investment, but something that, at least is a, deterrent to people who aren't serious.
mhm,
And then, at least when I'm going to call someone and say, hey, I have a date for you, they'll pick up the phone.
okay. I'm imagining that you go to a lot of weddings.
Yes, I actually have my first couple getting married in a couple weeks.
Nicely done.
So I'm super happy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I noticed when I was basically stalking your website, I noticed that there's a picture of an interracial couple on the site. And so you're white, I'm black. So it's like the elephant in the room, obviously. So
Yeah.
when you're matching up interracial couples, do you find that there might be different challenges in that? Or is it that, okay, it's just two people both looking for love? It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I view it more as the latter. It's just two people looking for love. Of course, there are obviously cultural differences that I do take into account, even when it just comes to religious differences. Someone who's like, I go to church every Sunday and I'm an atheist, like that might not work. So, it also, there's a lot of things that feed into that, and also attraction. Some people are like, hey, my type is XYZ, or my type is ABC. So I definitely take that into account too. But honestly, most people I talk to, I say, hey, do you have a type, or are you open to the whole rainbow of people to date?
Mhm.
And most people say they're open to everybody, which honestly, I really love that.
Yeah. Honestly, it's
Mhm.
kind of surprising to me, but hey, I'm happy about that though. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do have people, like the thing I run into the most is like people who want to date within their own ethnicity.
Mhm.
Like they'll be like, hey, I am black, so I only want to date black people, or I am white, so I only want to date white people, or whatever it is. But I do find most people are pretty open.
Okay. Cool. Hey, whatever works. Yeah.
Yeah. What have
Well,
you noticed, by the way, in dating? Have things come up, in interracial dating for you?
yeah, the cultural thing is the biggest thing that you hit on. And when talking about that, especially in the times that we live in, people are hypersensitive about those things. And
Yeah.
whereas people might have been more just kind of like free and open and things like that, and people are still free and more open a lot more today than it was when I was younger. But still, with everything that's going on today, it just seems that you want someone to at least have sympathy for the times that we live in and the experiences that another culture might be going through. and
Mhm.
and it's actually a good vehicle for people to have conversations that they wouldn't normally have with people that they wouldn't normally have those conversations with, and it opens the door for people to ask what might be considered ignorant or stupid questions. And I say stupid because I say stupid all the time, but if you don't know, you don't know. So
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
how
this
amazing.
yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say how amazing that like we can have these conversations in a time when there's just like so much weirdness going on,
Yeah.
and tension. I think it is cool that you could have that conversation with someone that you're dating, of a different race or different background. So
Yeah, yeah, without getting shouted down or whatever.
yeah,
So,
I think the biggest thing is just being open-minded. I think that
right.
is what leads most people to success. You could be so surprised with who you end up with.
Yeah.
So just having an open mind and seeing where it goes.
Yeah. And what it comes down to, especially for someone like me who's been dating for a long time, who would like to be married ideally, but isn't, um,
Mhm.
if my soulmate is whatever, if she's green, considering all of the strikeouts that I've had in my dating experiences, it would be hard for me to throw that green woman back in the pool just because she's green. So yeah, a lot of people might not understand that, but as you go on more and more of these weird dates with these weird people, and yeah, it makes you appreciate, hey, I'll take whatever I can get as long as she's cool, as long as she gives me peace and matches what I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm not going to
Mhm.
dismiss somebody based on something like that. So
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
thing.
so I'm Michael, can I ask you a question about your dating life?
You
Do you
can ask
mind?
me anything that you would like, Abby.
So why do you feel like you haven't found your person yet?
Yeah. Oh, Abby. Oh, Abby.
I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, and I think about that often. And, if you ask me tomorrow, I'll give you a different answer. But a lot of it is because I am particular for one, and two, because I make bad choices. Ultimately, everybody
I
can,
find that
like,
hard to believe.
I know, right? It's like, obviously, I can be like, oh, it's them, and I'm not meeting any good women, and the women out here suck, and all of this stuff. But ultimately, when it all comes back to why you're not in the position that you want to be in, regardless of what it is, it has to kind of start with you. And so it's funny. I remember that I have been dating like a couple different women at one time. And it got to a point where I had to get serious with one and let one go. And there are times when I look back on those choices that I made and was like, no, I should have chosen the other one because maybe the one that I did choose, she was more assertive and it made my job easier, like getting to know her. Whereas the other one, who was a little bit more introverted and might have taken a little bit more work to pull things out of her, but she had a decent heart. And
Mhm.
so, and also when talking about the criteria and being too picky, that's another thing that I had to reevaluate. Maybe my criteria is off. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong things that don't matter. And that's something that I had to evaluate. Really, what difference ultimately, if I don't need her money, what difference does it make what job she has? As long as she can sustain herself, why am I in her bank account? Things like that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, ask me tomorrow. You'll get a totally different answer because I have a totally different group of reasons. But the one thing that it comes back to is it starts with me. It's my fault. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey, that's the biggest thing is knowing that, it's who you choose rather than saying, oh, well, it's all these women that just are terrible.
Yeah.
I see that a lot, but you got to let me matchmake you.
Hey, if you can work with me in 6 months and find me somebody that I wind up marrying, I will give you $250 yesterday. But, uh,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Okay, we'll make it happen. We'll talk about it
Okay.
after the
Sounds like a
podcast.
plan. Sounds like a plan. So before we get into that and you like get into the process of finding me my soulmate or twin flame, as Reggie says, um,
Ooh, twin flame. I like it.
yeah, that's a Reggie term, and I had never heard it before. And when he said it, I thought it was just some bullshit that he came up with because he often does. But ever since he said it, I've been hearing it more and more. So he says that you can have multiple soulmates, but you can only have one twin flame. And part of the reason that I call bullshit on that is because there are like 7 to 8 billion people on this earth. If my twin flame is in India, I will never meet that woman. So what's the point? So I don't know, but he stands by
Interesting.
it.
Huh?
It is what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Where
We
is
are.
Reggie, by the way?
Well, like I said before, Reggie has social anxiety and he has some issues. It's like he went through 50 episodes of the podcast and all of a sudden it wasn't that he decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. He still wants to do it. He just lost his voice. So, he'll stand off to the side and I'll try to get him to say goodbye at the end of this. And maybe he will this episode, maybe he won't. But yeah, so he's off there running around somewhere doing something.
Well, I hope he makes a guest appearance soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So every episode, I expect that he'll come on and join me again, but hadn't happened yet. And it's funny because he and we talk all the time. I mean, we talk several times a week, but when it comes to actually coming on, yeah, all of a sudden he just decided that wasn't his thing anymore. Hmm. Oh
Well,
well,
that's okay.
that's fine.
The one man show. It
Yeah,
works for you.
I'll do it. Yeah, especially as long as I can have great guests like you on. Um,
Well,
and
thank you.
yeah.
This has been fun.
Yeah. And so we only have a few more minutes. But let me ask you this before we get to the process of you matching me up. Um,
Mhm.
you also do a lot, you talk a lot on your podcast about online dating, and you mentioned the experiences that you've had on dating apps. If someone came to you asking you to recommend one over the others, is there one that sits top of mind, or would you have to find out exactly what they're looking for and all of that stuff before you recommend something?
Yeah, I mean, so it would depend on where they're located, their age range, all those type of things. Just
Mhm.
because, for certain ages, like if you went on, Tinder as a 60-year-old, probably wouldn't find as many people on there,
Funny that.
And for example, like in Denver, Hinge is the biggest dating app. So I always
Okay.
tell people if you're here, use that. If you are a guy, I always say throw yourself on Bumble. Just why not, even though it's completely out of your control, and then always use something else. Honestly, they're all they all have the same people. They all it's just like the same thing regurgitated in a different way. But it just kind of depends on what city you're in and what the most popular one is. So then your chances are better. And then there are some that do have more of a barrier to entry, like you were talking about eHarmony and all their millions of
Yeah.
questions. Um, those are a little better just because it will filter out the bots and the fake profiles a little bit more
Mhm.
versus if you're on OkCupid, it seems like everyone's trying to get you into a pyramid scheme rather than actually go on a date with you.
Yeah. It's funny when you mention seeing people that use multiple apps. There are people that I have seen from one app to the other, and it's like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and in some cases, because specifically women, and not to single women out, but I date women, so women can change their look in ways that totally throw me off. So I have actually met women, gone out with women that I met on one app, and then reconnected with them on another app, not even knowing who they were. I
No
remember,
way.
yeah, it's like, as a matter of fact, maybe 6 months ago, um, I saw a woman. She looked vaguely familiar, but not, you see a lot of people, you don't think much of it. And so we actually got into a conversation, couldn't figure it out. I was like, it seems like we met before. And she was like, I don't know. And so we actually wound up going out. We're sitting there. We have a great night. Still can't remember it, but I'm like, I know her. And sure enough, I get home maybe a week later. Just came across a picture that she gave me literally 15 to 20 years ago. And I was like, this is her. And I took a picture of it, sent the picture to her. I was like, is this you? And she was like, oh my God, where'd you get this from? And she was acting like I was stalking her. I was like, no, I didn't break into your house and steal it. You gave this to me. And then the
What?
crushing blow about all of this that hurt my soul was, it took me back. I remembered the dates that we went on, the time we spent together. And I don't know if she was just saying it or if it was true. She said she did not remember me at all. Oh,
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
oh, yeah.
So I take it didn't go past that then after all of that.
No, no, because what's funny about it is we wound up going our separate ways just because things kind of faded out. I think she actually ghosted me after a while. I'm not
Ooh.
100% on that, but I think so. And so if she had said, because, and it's funny because she was all into me at this point, the second time that we met. And when I asked her about it, and she said she didn't remember me, and I was pointing out things that we'd done together and stuff like that. And she was like, nope, I don't remember anything like that. And if she had just said, well, it was a different time, yeah, we had fun, things just happened or whatever, I could have accepted that. But when you're saying that you don't remember me at all, I just took that as just some bullshit. So I was just like, I can't do this. So
That's frustrating, but
see,
also kind of a wild story.
it is interesting. And yeah, and it's funny that we're going to wrap up on that note. I have one more question for you, but it's
Yeah.
funny how you're going to leave me in this deep depression, making me tell that story, but that's all right. I'll
Oh
get over it.
gosh,
I'll get over it.
no.
Okay, my last question that I want to get to before I let you go is, because you do talk a lot about online dating and things like that. Um, what are the mistakes? What are the most common mistakes that you recognize from people that are doing the online dating thing?
Mhm. So I think number one is not having all of your pictures looking good on your profile and not having them current.
Okay.
That's one of the biggest things I see because I also do help people with their online profiles. We'll do photo shoots. I help them write their bios, make
Oh
them look
wow.
good. So, you don't need to do a photo shoot, but get a friend and a, fancy phone and just go take some pictures and, you'll be all good. So have current photos, have some full body photos in addition to ones of your face. Um, put some thought into your bio and definitely say what you are looking for. If you're looking for something serious, let that be known because that will be a really good filter right off the bat.
Mm.
And then I will say, probably the other big thing is that people wait too long and spend too much time on the app before they meet up in real life.
Hmm.
So, I have a rule of like 10 to 20 messages and then put it out there. If you like this person, give them two options. Say, I'm free Tuesday night at 5 or Friday for lunch. What works for you?
Okay.
Then they either ghost and they're not interested,
Hmm. Yeah.
or they pick one of those times and it works.
Okay.
Because sometimes when you say, let's meet up for drinks, or do you want to grab a drink? It's too open ended.
Yeah.
So men and women can both use that. I don't think that one gender has to initiate the first date. But put that out there, give them 2 times, and then balls in their court to actually meet up in real life. And then also, do a phone call or video chat before you meet in real life too. Then you also don't waste your time or their time. If ooh, this person is actually catfishing me.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like good advice to me.
I tried to make it short and sweet.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I thank you so much, Abby, for coming on. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun. And I hope that there was some information, hopefully, that's helpful to listeners. And if people need more of it, is this time for my shameless plug or?
Of course.
Okay, cool. So if people want more advice, just want to chat with me, ask me questions, reach out. You can send me a text 303-842-4762. You can follow me on Instagram at modernyenta, YENTA, or my company at thesocialmm or the social modern matchmaking. I know you mentioned the website at the beginning. It is www.thesocialmm.club, or you can go to modernmatchmaking.club. And I hope to hear from people about, if they have questions, if they want more advice. If you're not in Colorado, I can still help you revamp your dating app profile. Just let me know. I just charge hourly for that. Usually doesn't take more than an hour, to be entirely honest. And, if you're looking for a matchmaker in your area, I would love to connect you with one of my awesome friends all across the country.
Okay, great. And I will put all that information in the show notes. Reggie, come and say goodbye to Abby. Never mind. Thanks, Abby. And yeah, and to everybody listening, thank you all for listening. We are done here. And until next time, yeah, goodbye.